And a good morning, Birds fans. How are you this fine AM? You got JM and JM. That would be John McMullen and Jody McDonald here with you on Birds 365. I apologize for the minute or two of tardiness. John and I were both ready to go. We just started BSing with Tone, our producer, and all of a sudden, oh shoot, there were 2 minutes past the top of the hour. Our bad. So sorry to deprive you of 2 minutes of insight on the Eagles. We'll make up for it over the next hour and 56 minutes. Okay?
Can't take away from Saratella though. Yeah, we don't want to take those 2 minutes from Ricky.
That's why I said we're going to cram it into the hour and 56 minutes that we have here today on Birds 365. And Johnny Mac, yes, the Eagles are benefiting from the earned bye week that they have because they finished with the number one record in the NFC. Nick Sirianni you guys got a chance to talk to Nick yesterday. How many minutes did he actually do?
He did.
Do you even look at that and say, well, wait, Nick, you usually do X amount of minutes. You're doing X minus today. Do you even look at that?
Yeah, sometimes, because sometimes he's late and you want to see, you're supposed to do 15. It doesn't always get to 15. Sometimes he goes over 15. I think he probably went over 15. He was given a lot of answers, long answers yesterday. My question was about the self-scout, and he went on about taco soup and Fritos forever.
Oh, did you lead into the taco soup response?
Yeah, that was my fault, so I'll take the hit for that.
We'll hold you responsible for that, JM.
So, I think he went past 15. There was one, his record's about 30 minutes. He seemed tired yesterday, though. Woof, it's a grind. It's a grind this season. And getting through it. I don't know. To me, he seemed tired, but I
saw the same thing. He did just kind of look a little wrung out. I'm okay with that. They earned this. As I just said at the top of the show, an earned bye. They earned a bye. 32 teams came into this season, and 30 of them are either done or have to play for their lives this week. Only 2, the Andy Reid-led Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles, get to relax. You can be tired. You can be unshaven. Yeah, Nick needed to get the razor out yesterday, too. That's okay. It's your bye week. You earned it. Handle it how you feel you should handle it. As long as you are, by the time you know the end of the week, who you're playing, ready to hit the ground running and prep for that next opponent, your first postseason opponent, I'm good with however he handles himself.
Yeah, well, it's not a bye week for them. I mean, the coaches, that's why he's tired. They're grinding through the whole thing. So, yeah, but as far as the bye week, I mean, yeah, it's so much bigger now since they cut it from 2 to 1 as well. So, it's regular, I don't know how many buys Andy Reid has had, but a lot. Number 1 seeds too, a lot when they had 2 buys, two teams that had the buy. But this is the first time Nick has ever had it, obviously as a head coach, but it's also the first time in his career he's ever had it, even as an assistant. So, you get mixed up in the Reids and the Belichicks of the world who it became commonplace for. It's not easy. It's not easy. And that's why I think the panic, and not everybody, but there's a certain level of panic because the Eagles weren't playing their best football at the end of the season. I'm not as concerned as most people because getting that bye and making sure teams have to go through Lincoln Financial Field, that is good news, especially in a year where I say it all, the NFC doesn't look that good. It's kind of gone back and forth for me, Jody. You and I know we both were in the same place preseason, off season. The AFC looked much better. Into the season, we're like, it hasn't shaken out that way. And we get to the playoffs and I go, the AFC's better. They have more good teams. Yeah, I mean, everything's set up for the Eagles. It's a good situation to be in.
Yeah, I'm going to, if the Eagles do make it to the Super Bowl, which is, as of right now, sitting here, 8:08 on a Wednesday morning during the Eagles' earned bye week, I'm sticking by my preseason prediction of the Eagles being in the Super Bowl. And if they do make it, you guys are going to get tired of the victory dances I'm going to do. But I readily admit a big reason why I picked the Eagles to go to Super Bowl was I thought the NFC was going to come up a little weak this year. I thought they were the best of a good group, but a lesser group as compared to the AFC. And you're right. Now that we've reached the playoffs, you look over there, you got all the quarterbacks and go, wow, that's a gauntlet. You got to get through that. That's a whole lot of work. NFC, not so much. Is Brock Purdy a guy that you should actually be scared of? Because he is. He's playing really good week in and week out. He's a rookie on his.
He's playing excellent football. But if you give me Brock Purdy versus Justin Herbert, I'm going to be more fearful of Justin Herbert. If you give me Brock Purdy against Joe Burrow, never mind Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a little bit more fearful of the other guy. Now, there's a lot. San Francisco has a tremendous team. That's the issue with San Francisco, not the quarterback, the team. And they're a very good team, and they will be a difficult matchup if it gets to that place for both of those teams, and I think it will. That'll be a difficult game. But the game before that for the Eagles, and remember, it'll be 2 games for San Francisco, shouldn't be that difficult. Dallas has a little bit of talent, but we know their inconsistency, and you're playing again at Lincoln Financial Field. Everybody else, all the other possibilities, Eagles are just so much more talented. They would have to bring, their D game, and the other team would have to bring the A game to win that game. I'm not saying it can't happen. It happens all the time in the NFL where the lesser team upsets the better team. But the Eagles are going to have to play really poorly on a game day to lose to Seattle, the Giants, or Tampa Bay. They're going to have to play really, really, really poorly. Really poorly.
You left Dallas out of that rundown. Did you do so for a reason?
Yeah, Dallas is talented. Dallas is at least talented. So the Eagles are better. But if they play a poor game against Dallas, they could get caught because they have significant talent. They have really good players on both sides of the football. The other teams, you got to play really bad. That's the difference. They got to show up in 4 turnovers, Washington game, just collapse. They're going to beat themselves if they lose to the Seahawks, the Giants, or the Bucks.
Again, we saw a couple of those games this year. It's not like
Washington.
It's such an unbelievable thought.
No, it happens all the time in the NFL.
Game. They did against Washington. They did against New Orleans, and they got beat both games. So it is possible, but the Eagles could bring their C- game. And then, in the playoffs, you're facing good teams. Some very good teams, some great teams. That would be the AFC. By the time and maybe San Francisco, by the time we get through it all, we'll know who are the good, very good, and great teams. Yeah, you just have to avoid playing below your own standard game.
You got to avoid playing the Washington game. The Washington is the one game because Jalen was there. Jalen wasn't there for the Saints game, so I'll put that aside. The Washington game is what you got to avoid, and they turned it over 4 times, and they beat themselves. So people say Washington beat the Eagles. I'll say the Eagles beat the Eagles. They beat themselves, and that's how they would have to lose. Not that you can't, you saw it happen. It can happen. It happens all the time in the NFL. But that's why I use that phraseology. They would have to play very poorly to lose to one of those 3 teams. Very poorly. You said C- game. I'll go as far as D. And the other team would have to play the A game as well because they have to play clean. They have to get the 4 turnovers. They have to do everything right. They have the razor thin margin of victory, the other teams. So it has to work both ways. The Eagles got to show up and lay an egg, and the other team's got to play well.
All right. We got 2 good guests joining us today. some WVU guys, West Virginia's finest, Mike Gill from
And
down the
Jonathan
shore.
Gannon, truthers. That's
Yeah.
why I want him on the show.
Okay. Yeah. Kevin Kincaid from Crossing Broad had a good article in there about Jonathan Gannon up on his website yesterday, which was a very good read. So we're going to get them going. Gil should join us in less than 10 minutes from now. One thing I wanted to get into the first segment, Johnny Mac, Pro Football Focus, a football grading, rating, analyzing outlet that both you and I reference and check out. Sometimes I think they're spot on stuff that they do, and other times they leave me scratching my head. But more good than bad with the way I would describe Pro Football Focus. They came out with their all-pro teams yesterday. And the first team, all-pro inside linebacker, was TJ Edwards of the Philadelphia Eagles, who didn't make first team, second team, or alternate Pro Bowl at the inside linebacker position. But Pro Football Focus had him as the starter, the number one all-pro inside linebacker. Chances are the answer is somewhere in the middle. I'm not sure that he's
I don't think it is in the middle. This is where I've been talking about this all year. TJ Edwards, and I talked about it when the Pro Bowl, the Eagles had 17 either Pro Bowl players or alternates.
Right.
And I said the biggest snub was TJ Edwards. And he was a snub because he was undrafted. And people have a really, really difficult time when it comes to the guys that don't have the pedigree that they think, and they're stunned that they become good players. It happens all the time. And he has played at a Pro Bowl level. In their case, they say all pro level. He's really good. And he's the most, I've been talking about it all year. I shipped it to Hassan Reddick at the end because I think Hassan Reddick is, the home run hitter. And I always joke that, I use the baseball analogies a lot. And you could say the 5-tool player, but give me the guy in the middle of the lineup that's hitting 50 home runs. And he's more impactful on the game. So, Hassan Reddick with the 16 sacks and the 5 strip sacks, those splashy plays have a big impact on the game. But as far as down-to-down consistency, the best player on the Eagles defense, the MVP of the Eagles defense, the quarterback of the Eagles defense is TJ Edwards. And people don't believe it because he went undrafted. And they should give TJ Watt a lot of credit for this, by the way, because they're good friends from their days at Wisconsin. And TJ has completely remade his body from when he got here to now. Very similar to Marcus Epps as well. But Marcus, is a good player, but he's not at TJ's level. They grinded, they focused, the knock against TJ Edwards was he was slow. He's never going to be Kaiser White, but he had a bad day. He had a bad day when he ran the 40. But he's very instinctual, so that makes up for some of it. And he's also worked on his speed, and he's faster than he was when they pulled out the stopwatch on one day in March or whenever it was back in, when he was there. And by the way, I talk about it all the time. He was a great college player.
Yeah.
He was a great college player. He was the runner-up for the Butkus Award to Roquan Smith. He was the second best linebacker in the country. But he ran a 4.87. And people just dismissed him. And all of a sudden he shows up and he's a great player at the pro level. Oh, but he can't run. Guess what? Kaiser White's getting beaten like a drum for that 2-week period as the coverage linebacker. Another West Virginia guy, West Virginia theme. Kaiser's the only linebacker on the field in dime packages. The Eagles don't use a lot of dime, but typically. And you know what? He was playing poorly. They changed. They put Edwards on the field, and he does well at that. I mean, the guy is just a good, stinking football player. So in this instance, Pro Football Focus got it right, and the other people got it wrong. And I don't even think it's somewhere in the middle, Jody.
So you think he's the best middle linebacker in football?
Well, that
or in the NFC. Is different.
I shouldn't say football. He's certainly a Pro Bowl linebacker. He certainly had that type of year. Now, if you want to argue Bobby Wagner, maybe, maybe he's a tick better. If you want to argue Fred Warner out in San Francisco, maybe he's a tick better. I'm not going to say he's the best, but he's a Pro Bowl level linebacker. I'll say that.
No, but that's where Pro Football Focus made him number one, and I'm not sure he's that. Which is more of an affront to me, his Pro Bowl snub, than the over evaluation of him being number one inside linebacker in the NFC. I'm not.
Well, their all pro teams are pretty straightforward. Who has the best grade? Who has the best film grade? That's it. That's how they judge it. It's not about anything else. It's not about past performance. It's not about last year. It's not about next year. It's not about, ability down the road. It's not about stopwatch speed. And they judged that he had the best film this year. So he's the all pro linebacker. Now, as I said, if you want to argue, Fred Warner's really close. Wagner's really close, and Wagner has been an all-pro level linebacker for years and years and years, and he's going to go to the Hall of Fame. So when you talk about Pro Bowl teams, people are going to default to him. But their way of doing it is just, all right, who had the best film this year? That's the all-pro. I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. I can't go. Fred Warner's close to TJ Edwards. That means he's behind TJ Edwards. I'm sorry, I'm not going there, so I can't agree with that. But I do think the fact that he didn't even make Pro Bowl alternate is just a slap in the face, which he didn't deserve, and that bothers me more than him being slightly over elevated on Pro Football Focus. And you did throw out the name there, Roquan Smith, the guy that he ran runner-up to in college for the Butkus Award. Roquan Smith signed yesterday with the Ravens. 5 years, $100 million. If he's a very comparable player to Roquan Smith, is that what it's going to cost the Eagles to re-sign TJ Edwards?
Nope. Same reason. Roquan's got the rep. Roquan's got the pedigree. You would think this league is smarter than it is, but they're not. They fall into the same traps as everybody else. He's a very good player, Roquan Smith. I'd have to look it up real quick. Let's see. 28th in the NFL this year. Had to change teams. He's typically better than that.
28th. What ranking are you quoting?
PFF.
But
28th
linebacker position or just overall?
No, linebacker. 28th linebacker. TJ's second. Bobby Wagner's first.
And you're telling me TJ Edwards is going to make that much less than Roquan Smith?
Yep.
Roquan Smith is 28th and TJ Edwards is second.
Yep.
I wouldn't accept that if I were his agent. Please.
That's how the league has worked for decades, Jody. Decades. Okay. Reputation is a big part of it. I'm not saying it's right. It's a big part of it. The Eagles are going to get a break when it comes to a TJ Edwards. Still going to have to pay him a lot. Way more than anybody would have expected. But he's not getting Roquan Smith money. And it's got all to do with pedigree and reputation and all that stuff. Happens all the time in the NFL. All the time.
Which to me is just stone cold ridiculous. When you finished off, not 1 year, not 2 years, not 3 years, 4 years, you put 4 years into the league and you established yourself and your level of play. That's what you should be paid on, not where you were drafted 4 years previously.
Well, and he hasn't played at this level for 4 years. I mean, to be fair,
right, he's been in the league for 4 years.
But. Yeah. Roquan
played for 3. He stepped in 2 years ago and then started all last year and this year. It isn't like he's a 1 year wonder either.
No, but he's incrementally improved. Like if you said, when TJ kind of broke into the lineup really in the second season a little bit, like right. Roquan was a much better player. Third season, Roquan was still a much better player. This season, TJ's played better. So when it comes to contracts, it's a little different than, all pro rankings for one season. You do take in past performance. You do take in, do you think TJ can continue to play at this level? That plays into it as well. And and they're going to
Would
default.
you suggest there would be more of a drop-off to DJ Edwards than Roquan Smith?
Well, Roquan is enormously talented from a skill set and a trade standpoint. I don't think he's going to turn into a bad player, but I don't think TJ is going to turn into a bad player. But just from a skill set standpoint, Roquan is better. And people get enamored with that. I mean, they get enamored with that. That's why TJ wasn't drafted. I mean, one's the best linebacker in college, one's the second best linebacker. One goes in the top 10, the other guy doesn't get drafted. NFL teams are enamored with measurables. Roquan has everything from a physical standpoint to be a star linebacker. And he is a star linebacker. I'm not trying to say he isn't. TJ, they will never get over 4.487, Jody. Never get over it. They still don't get over it. They don't believe he's a good player now. You got Eagles fans that don't think he's a good player because they read that, 4 years ago. Oh, he can't run. You say he's not a 3-down linebacker. You hear it today. Even after they watched him on the best team in football be the most consistent player on defense. They still say it.
It's one of the reasons why I will stand by my yes. I will use collegiate production when analyzing a player for the ability to step up and play in the next level. As you correctly pointed out, DJ Edwards was one of the most productive players in college football. And guess what? Now he's in the NFL. He's one of the most productive players.
But you got to be careful because, again, if you saw TJ come in here when he was 9th on the depth chart and you walked in the locker room today and saw TJ, they look like different people. So it's not like he hasn't worked his ass off to get better. And that's where I give TJ Watt credit because he works out with TJ in the offseason and TJ's a freak. And he's gotten into the same training regimen. He's remade his body. He's made himself better. If you just show up and say, hey, I'm TJ Edwards, I'm a star at college, and he didn't do all the extra stuff and all the hard work, he wouldn't have made it. So it's not just about that. It's players improve. I always go, Tim Tebow is one of the best college players of all time. Can't play in the NFL level. So you got to be careful with that. I agree with you to a certain point. Like his football IQ, his intangibles, just his football intelligence were off the chart. That's a big thing. And they kind of dismissed it because of the 4.87. But he has worked his ass off on top of it. So that's part of it as well. People evolve. You can get better or you can get worse. And he's gotten a lot better.
And that's mostly to his credit, but also the Eagles' credit because they might have seen that in him when they signed him to the undrafted free agent contract. All right, Johnny Mac, coming back with our buddy Mike Gill from down the shore. Yeah, it's kind of a WVU day, West Virginia day. He and Kevin Kincaid from Crossing Broad are going to be our two guests. So at some point, we'll reference the Mountaineers with both of those guys. But we'll be mostly talking Eagles.